he put out a tweet that his sources are telling him that things are brewing and it could get ugly down in Jacksonville. Okay. According to 2 Jacksonville sources, says Michael Lombardi, there are many closed-door meetings happening over the last 2 days in the football offices, and none of them have anything to do with the Titans. Stay tuned. This might get ugly, says Lombo. And once again, we'll be talking to him in about 4 minutes to see what more we can get out of him about this particular thing. But that was not it. Michael Silver of the NFL Network, a man who I don't think I necessarily have had any good relationship with. No. I don't really know him at all personally, but he has taken some shots across the bow at me, I think, a few times. Whatever the case. He says that his sources are telling him the players laughed Urban Meyer out of these meetings, basically. Jesus. His sources, now who knows what the sources, these are all anonymous sources. We don't know shit about any of this, okay? We don't know if any of this is real. Anytime you have anonymous sources, you don't know 100% what the truth is. But Michael Silver said that the players kind of have lost some respect for Urban because on Monday, they canceled the meeting. Urban Meyer canceled the meeting on Monday that they were supposed to have after Thursday Night Football because of what they were dealing with. So the players thought that he was embarrassed or, kind of immature. Like, hey, we're still having a fucking meeting here. Yeah. Because this is the professionals. And if we win, guess what? We all make a lot of money. Players were also particularly put off by the fact that Meyer canceled Monday's team meeting as he dealt with the uproar over the videos of him and a young woman getting cozy at an Ohio bar. He even canceled the team meeting. He was too scared, a player said to Michael Silver. He was too scared to step in front of the room. By the way, because it's much different than the room in which you control everybody's scholarships. And it's much different than the room in which you can literally ruin people's lives and trajectories and you have all the power. You are the dictator. You control the entire schedule. Whenever you talk about grown men, you're talking about people that are like, oh, this guy's fucking up my life. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if he would have attacked it face on, I think the players would have had a lot more respect. They lost respect because of the fact that he canceled the meeting. And instead, Meyer only apologized to position groups individually. He portrayed the woman in videos as a random person who was just there dancing. Suffice to say, his audience was highly skeptical. Said one player, we looked at him like, what the fuck? Right when he left, everyone started dying laughing. So literally, he comes in, boys, I got a little, they caught me doing stuff on the internet, and I don't want to be a distraction. It's all about winning football games around here, as you've heard me say. Coach, a couple quick questions here. Where were you? And who was it? Oh, that's my bar. Yeah, I have a bar. I got a whiskey place. I have a dance thing. And a girl's just some random woman dancing. You saw her just dancing around or whatever. It could have been anywhere or whatever. Thank you so much. Let's get back to work and let's beat the Titans. Oh, okay. And then he shuts the door and then... through the doors. So Urban Meyer is walking out there. All right, thank you guys. Let's get to work, and shuts the door. And then he bought it. That laughing thing happens, and he just has to go. Oh, no, he just walks away. How do you stand in front of the team after you've been laughed out of a fucking room already?
Yeah, you don't.
You can't.
Yeah,
you literally can't. That's going to be tough. I guess if anybody can do it, you know who can? Urban Meyer can do it.
They can do it. Freaking Meyer.
There's people calling for his job, obviously. They're saying that there's a chance that they were going to potentially move on from Urban Meyer. There's been a lot of reports that the players now are disinterested in the whole situation because, we're adults. We're all trying to make a living here. We're all trying to feed our family, and winning helps us all do all those things. And you've been pitching, turning around this entire culture, and here you are, not even flying home with us on a Thursday night game. Mm-hmm. And then when you stick around in a time, you tear it down, and it gets seen by everybody. I mean, what the hell is going on? Your tweet this morning saying that things could get ugly or might get ugly, stay tuned in Jacksonville, which led to a Michael Silver report about what players have been saying. So I would assume, I don't know if a player is your source, I'd assume that's not the case, but now it feels like multiple parts of the building are starting to get the same feeling down in Jacksonville, if these sources are accurate, yours and Michael Silver's. What is your thoughts on how this whole thing pans out, and what are you hearing as of this moment?
I think a lot of this is about money, right? I think this is more about money than Urban going to continue as the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars beyond this season. I don't know if Urban will make it through the season. He might. I don't know if he'll make it to the next game. He might. But I do know that I think this is problematic on both parts. I think that it doesn't fit. I think the Khan family realizes it. Today I tweeted that about there's a lot of closed doors meetings. Last night it was relayed to me that Urban was concerned they were trying to get him on cause. And that permeated through the building. And I got a text about that late last night about perhaps they're going to try to fire him for cause. I don't know if they're trying to do that. I do know that
for cause means they don't have to pay him, right? Yeah.
This is really what I do know. This is essentially going to become about money, because I think there's going to be a divorce. I don't think that press release, illustrated any support towards Urban and the regime that's going on so far down there in Jacksonville. And I think it's a lot of problems. And I think that was craftily worded by a lot of legalese people, smarter than I am. But I do think the issues in the building, the closed door meetings, the concerns about all those things, starting with the fact that in my 35-year NFL career, I have never, ever been on a team plane where the head coach wasn't coming back with me. Never. I mean, if I would have been the general manager of Jacksonville, I would have said, Urban, you got a lot of money. Fly home with us, go into the hangar, and then fly a plane back to Cincinnati if it's that important to you. Like, this is as much about your commitment to our team, you're staying in the trenches with us, than it is anything. And to do what he did to me, beyond going to the hanging out, all that's something he's got to deal with himself. This message he sends is horrendous.
I agree. And speaking of the message, you were talking about Shad Khan, in which you felt that a lot of legalese was potentially in there. As you get a phone call, maybe from a source, you might want to answer that. Bring that statement back up so we can read it to the listeners that maybe didn't see it. Shad Khan had a statement from his notes section via Ian Rappaport's Twitter account. I have addressed this matter with Urban. Specifics of our conversation will be held in confidence. What I will say is his conduct last weekend was inexcusable. I appreciate Urban's remorse, which I believe is sincere. Now he must regain our trust and respect. That will require a personal commitment from Urban to everyone who supports, represents, or plays for our team. I am confident he will deliver. This is not a statement that you want to be delivering about your head fucking coach in the NFL, first of all. But second of all, it sounds like Shad, now even if there is legalese in there, maybe Urban Meyer does have a chance to kind of build back his credibility down there and get back on the vision that he and Shad Khan had whenever they decided to invest, I think like hundreds of millions of dollars in the area around the stadium, and we're going to build Jaguar land and Duval and all this. I mean, there was an entire vision about turning around. It was a couple years they've been talking, since a Big Ten conference in Illinois a couple years back, and he'd been advising Shad, and then now they're having to deal with this type of thing. So maybe he is able to win it back, but you've been in for 35 years. I was only in an NFL locker room for 8 years. Once those guys think you're completely full of shit, you can't lie to an NFL locker room. Like, that's just not something that happens. So I'm surprised that was his angle. You know what I mean, Paisan?
I mean, look, the problem is one of the key components of leadership is called management of trust. The players have to trust you. You can be an asshole. You just have to be a consistent asshole. Yep. You could be, it doesn't really matter. If they trust you're an asshole, they'll trust it. But if you're an asshole to somebody and then you're not to somebody else, you lose their trust. And I think he's lost their trust. I think he's in a job that he wasn't really fully prepared for. I don't mean this in any disrespect to the University of Indiana or anywhere, but at the NFL, there's no easy games on your schedule. You don't get Indiana next week. You don't get Purdue next week. It's hard. It's hard. And every coach on the staff is intellectually challenged to match it. And if you can't walk into the key meeting room and say, look, here's what I want to do on defense, here's what I want to do on offense, when all you're concerned about is really who's being recruited, I think it's a job that he probably shouldn't have taken. I mean, he's best for college, where he can control the recruiting element and he can sign 5 stars, which is what he loves, and as opposed to trying to play tactitional football coach.
Is there, because there was a little bit of a belief, it felt like some Jaguars, even players and everybody was kind of buying in. We're not elite is too much. We're going to live on the edge down here. And I want certain players that are on the edge. And he would give a press conference and he would say, in the NFL, I don't even get to meet with these guys before we sign them. I'd like to meet everybody and learn about them. And people are like, yeah, Urban's right. Like, we should change the way the NFL is. I mean, there was at a time, I think people thought this was going to go really well. Did you expect him to fail this quickly? I did not. I thought he was going to struggle. I thought he was just going to be middle of the road, just kind of middle of the road. But after 4 weeks into this thing, and that's not a lot of time, by the way. We got 17 games in a season. I think he signed a 5-year deal. There is still a lot of road ahead potentially in which one. But it seems like this has been a disaster, Lombo. A disaster.
Yeah, I mean, it had all the earmarks of a disaster. First of all, just look at his staff. I mean, Joe Cullen's a wonderful man. He's never called defenses before in his life. It's a hard job, right? He hires a defensive coordinator. He brings Charlie Strong in, who was a former head coach. The offensive staff's got Darrell Bevel and Brian Schottenheimer, two guys that one guy was fired for the other guy in Seattle. Bevel's West Coast. Schottenheimer's more of the Norv Turner system. They can blend it together, but they don't play tempo. I mean, I think it's really the mismatch of the staff told me that Urban really didn't prepare for pro football. When Jimmy Johnson walked into Dallas, he had a complete defensive staff. He had Tony Wise as his offensive line coach. He hired David Shula to be his quarterback coach, and then he made that mistake, and eventually he went to Norv. But his staff was what he wanted it to be, and it was college guys that took their college game to the pro. When Jimmy came in the league, everybody said you can't play quarters coverage. And Jimmy proved them all wrong. You could. And now everybody plays quarters. But the reality here is Jimmy had a football staff that he brought with him. Urban's not that guy. Urban's a recruiter. And recruiters don't last in the National Football League. It's a chess match because the talent level is the same. It's player development. It's about how we're going to get the best out of our players. It's scheme. It's each week's a different week. That's not the game Urban's going to play. Matt Rule can play that game because that's what Matt's used to. He's at Temple, Baylor. He understands it. Whereas this guy's been at the elite programs. He walks on the field and he's just checking his watch. Well, we'll win by 30 today, maybe 40. I don't know.
Yeah, because he's like a CEO there. He gets people into the building, all the best athletes. Let me get the best players in here because I can offer them a lot of incredible things. We have the greatest facilities. Our fan base is incredibly passionate and loyal. They'll show up. This place will be the best place we play in all year. We're going to win. We're going to do our thing. And you're going to get a degree. Come on in. Okay, cool. I'll come into the factory that is that. And then whenever you just hire an offensive coordinator, hire a defense coordinator, hire a special teams coordinator, then you have a recruiting coordinator, then you become like a figurehead at that point, right? Don't you kind of become a figurehead?
No doubt. I mean, just look. I mean, the whole staff he made a mistake on the staff. He had to get rid of the strength coach originally. He was insensitive to the situation down there. He made that mistake. I mean, really, what's happening to him? He doesn't have anybody who's advising him on what's going on. Like when you go into the NFL, if you don't have a plan on how you're going to attack this and what you're going to do, and you've studied this league for years, and this is what I want to do, it's not going to work. I mean, Lou Holtz tried to do it. Bud Wilkinson tried to do it. A lot of college coaches have tried to do it. Nick Saban. Nick Saban went back to college. I mean, it's sometimes it's better in college than it is in the pro. And you've got to be able to convince the players you can solve the problems, right? Because they're counting on you to solve the problems because at the end of the day, they want to make money. And if you can't solve the problems, you get toned out.
Yeah, him getting laughed out of the position groups, by the way, if that's a real story, that's going to be a tough crowd to face tomorrow if you're Urban Meyer. Go ahead, Todd.
They're not going to believe him, right?
No way. That's why he should have just went in there and said, I got drunk. I fucked up. I apologize, boys. I'm going to move forward. Let's move forward. Let's try to win some games. Everybody be like, all right, cool.